Standing in the presence of God at the burning bush, Moses declares his ineloquence. Bi Adonai, lo ish devarim anochi, ki chavad peh uchvad lashon anochi. Please, Adonai, I have never been a man of words. I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. God replies patiently, I'll be with you as you speak, and will instruct you what to say. But Moses is scared to go on the mission for which he is called. He says, please, Adonai, make someone else your agent. Send someone else. At this further hesitance, God becomes a bit angry with Moses. Well, there's your brother Aaron the Levite, God says. He I know speaks readily. Aaron shall serve as your spokesman. And so the brothers worked together to lead the Israelites out from Egypt. Aaron as the wordsmith, Moses as the visionary. But there are two moments in the Torah when Moses emphatically finds his own voice, his own words. Two places in the Torah's overarching narrative where Moses speaks from the very depths of his soul. Standing at borders, one leading into the wilderness, the other the border of Israel, standing there in those two places, song bursts forth from Moses' mouth. His poems encapsulate the Israelites' wilderness journey. Shirat Hayam, or the Song at the Sea, which is read on Shabbat Shirah, is one of two songs or poems in the Torah credited to Moses. Standing on the edge of the wilderness after the miraculous crossing of the Sea of Reeds, Moses leads the Israelites in a poem of gratitude, words of which you know. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh. Who is like you, Adonai, among the gods? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, worker of wonder? Standing on its own, for this text is one of the oldest in the Torah, Shirat Hayam is a poem of victory that glorifies God's power. But when read as we have it, within the story of the Exodus, the poem has a transformative purpose. As the poem in its entirety suggests, in the crossing of the sea, the Israelites broke through a boundary of experience. They lived a miracle. After the crossing, there's a pause in the story, a period of readjustment, of return to the previous plane of experience, which now incorporates the miraculous event of the immediate past. Poetry is used to effect this return. The poem's poet, according to the Torah, is Moses. The man's kavad lashon, or heavy tongue, becomes quite nimble. So this moment, too, is one of self-definition. Moses' poetry propels him to a new level of leadership. He speaks without prompting from God or through the mouth of Aaron. Moses' words transform him into a poet leader. And after poetry comes action, comes travel. In the very next chapter we read, Then Moses caused Israel to set out from the Sea of Reeds. They went on into the wilderness. Shirat Hayam is a narrative gateway. Through poetry, the Israelites entered into the wilderness, the physical setting of the remainder of the Torah. In this week's portion, on this Shabbat Shuvah, the Sabbath of return, Moses and the Israelites have reached new borders. And on this Shabbat, we read from Moses' final song or poem, Ha'azinu, Give Ear. These are its opening words. Ha'azinu hashamayim va'adabera, v'tishma ha'aretz imrei fi, ya'arof kamatar likchi, tizal katal imrati. Give ear, O heavens, let me speak. Let the earth hear the words of my mouth. May my teaching come down as the rain. May my speech distill as the dew, like showers on young growth, like droplets on the grass. Ha'azinu is a recapitulation told in metaphors of the story of the relationship between Israel and God, stretching from creation through the upcoming conquest of Canaan. Like Shirat Hayam, Ha'azinu functions as another narrative gateway. Once again, we are in the midst of a pause in the travels of the Israelites, and it is time for reflection before they take action. The Israelites stand on a threshold. They're about to enter Canaan, and Moses is approaching his death. But this poem is different from Shirat Hayam, for the writer and his audience have changed. If the poem sung on the shores of the Reed Sea is one of reaction, an immediate expression of amazement at God's powers, Ha'azinu is a song of reflection, an epic poem that, as Nachmanides states, embraces the present, the past, and the future, this life and the hereafter. We read Ha'azinu on the 8th of these 10 days of repentance. Our tradition prescribes that on the day before Yom Kippur, on the 9th day, which is Sunday, you are to travel from house to house asking for forgiveness from those you have wronged during the past year. Only after doing this, making amends to fellow human beings, can one enter the synagogue and ask for forgiveness from God. This practice epitomizes these 10 days, a time set apart, during which we must strive to recognize and confront the mistakes we have made towards others. The custom encourages self-awareness and then action. It facilitates the breaking down of barriers and the crossing of borders. You must go to the threshold of an individual's house, and there you need to find the language through which to say you are sorry. This is an act of teshuvah. And at the root of the notion of teshuvah lies the concept of shuvah, of return. Return to the past, return to a more proper path, return to the self, return to others, and in so doing, return to the sacred. Borders and boundaries, thresholds and gateways, times set apart. A week ago, with the blowing of the shofar, we passed from one period of time to the next, from the quotidian to the sacred, from the days of our lives to the days of repentance. Our rituals brought us into a different plane of living. The sound of a shofar, like the words of a poem, expresses needs and emotions that prose, of course, cannot. The sound ushered us through the gateway of Rosh Hashanah into a 10-day pause in our lives, in our journeys, that is intended for self-reflection, which then leads to action. It is said that the gates of teshuvah, of repentance, are open always. So why not seize this wonderful opportunity to pass through them? Your words can propel you to new levels. So whom have you wronged? From whom have you drifted in this past year? Where stand boundaries and borders between you and another individual? Now is the time for our custom, the time for return. Seize the moment, for no one else can be your agent. So go to that person's house, wear a mask, of course, and bring hand sanitizer. Maintain social distance, but knock on the door and overcome your ineloquence by finding the language, the poetry, with which to say, I was wrong.